Hello, welcome to Queer Cinema Catchup. I'm Joe.
And I'm Allison.
And today we're talking about the 2016 movie Moonlight. The Oscar-winning movie Moonlight.
Best Picture winner.
Best Picture winner.
Which I've seen multiple times throughout it came out, almost 10 years ago. I've seen it quite a number of times, but how many times have you seen it, Joe?
This was my first viewing.
What?
And we watched it just last night. I had never seen it, and I don't know why.
Do you remember it coming out?
I just remember the Oscar fiasco.
Guys, I'm sorry. No, there's a mistake. Moonlight, you guys won Best Picture.
La La Land mistakenly being called out. And then I don't know why that didn't motivate me to
watch
see
it.
the movie. And then before the movie started, Allison asked me what I thought the movie was about. And I thought that Mahershala Ali played the main character's father, and it was like a dynamic of understanding what their dynamic was like, but the father actually wasn't in the picture, and Mahershala Ali was not the boy's father, but a father figure.
Yes.
For a short time.
Yes, I remember almost everything about this movie, but you asked me early on, you said, this is going to be full of spoilers, everybody. It has been 10 years. But you asked me if he passes away, and I'm like, I actually don't remember what happens to him. And I think the reason for that is because it happens off screen in a way that's not, it's all kind of subtextual that you find out that he's passed away. And it's not really a major plot point, even though it is a major plot point in the sense of how it defines Chiron, the main character.
Which I feel like speaks to this entire movie is you're reading between the lines of a lot of things. And it's very like smartly told, but it was a little challenging for me to connect to.
Oh, yeah. I don't know. I want to hear more about that, I guess.
The movie is played out in 3 parts, and we follow Chiron in his youth.
Little.
His high school age.
Chiron.
And he's born in 1990. He's the same age as me. So he's like 26 by the end of at least the character playing him is 26.
Okay. And the last chapter is Black. That's his nickname as an adult.
And I guess by the end of the movie, I was surprised that it was over, which I guess is a good thing because I wanted to see more, but I never quite felt like the movie got started for me.
That's interesting. I don't know. Yeah, I definitely, both when I saw it originally and every time I've seen it since, have been very kind of emotionally swept away by it. And I love a coming of age story. So there's that part of it where it's always going to hook me when you're kind of following a kid as they become an adult. And then just specifically when I saw it in 2016, the revelation at the end that this hyper masculine, intimidating person who's kind of constructed this persona that might not even be his true self in order to feel safe in the world or to kind of have power in the world, however you want to define that. When he reveals to Kevin, who was his childhood friend, and they had one intimate encounter, that is the only time he's ever had a real intimate encounter. And I assume he means both physically and emotionally. I just thought that was so devastating. And I feel like for me that payoff at the end, when you're kind of like trying to, so just to quickly summarize, he falls little as a young boy where he is living at home with his mother, who is an addict. He's bullied relentlessly at school, and we come to find out via his mother that it's probably because the other kids can tell that he's gay, even though Little himself does not know. Then it moves into the Chiron chapter, where perhaps he is more aware of his queer desires. He has a dream about his friend Kevin, who's still his friend, and he's still being very mercilessly bullied. We find out that Mahershala Ali's character, Juan, who did kind of stand in as a father figure, has passed away. His mother is still addicted. And it kind of culminates, there's 2 big moments in the second chapter. One, he has an intimate and beautiful kind of vulnerable moment on the beach with Kevin. But then Kevin kind of succumbs to peer pressure.
The following day.
Yes.
At least that's what it seems like in the movie.
And beats up Chiron, which prompts Chiron to attack the bully that made Kevin do it in a very dramatic scene. And then it ushers us into part 3 where
Kevin attacks the bully. Oh,
no,
yeah.
Chiron with the chair.
My God, he broke a chair over the guy's back.
I know that part. I still remember. You had the same reaction that I did. You were like, oh my God. That's exactly, you're supposed to, but. And then, just ushering that into the 3rd chapter where Chiron is suddenly so altered from the boy that we met as a young man. That is shocking to me. And then also the reveal that somebody who has so much strength can't be vulnerable or hasn't let himself be vulnerable to ever have that human connection is like really devastating. Of course, it also makes sense because he's like masking his real self in a way. Or is that his real self? I don't know. I find that really moving.
So this is my first time seeing it in the year 2025. So it's been 9 years since this movie came out. And so I feel like a lot of history has passed and like the uniqueness of that story still feels extremely unique.
Yes.
I feel like I don't see many movies like this to this day. So I feel like it's very like forward thinking. And then in its representation, it's showing, it's a very, I imagine, important movie for people who identify that way that like really felt seen by this movie. And so in that level, like this was like an amazing movie in that sense. I just like the structure of it, like watching everything play out chronologically, and we see what he's like as a child. We see how he's like as a teenager. By the time we see him as an adult, it's like it's kind of shocking to see how much he's like changed himself. But like I know like I saw who he himself like carried through that whole thing. So then in that third act, when it's like him reconnecting with Kevin, it's like, well, like I know, like we didn't see any scenes of him at like trying to like hide it. It was all kind of, it was like physically, like just done through him physically, like showing like how much he's like built himself and tried to become this masculine character that he's been criticized for all his life not being.
I have a few thoughts came to my mind, but one thing that struck me when I was watching it with you is during that scene when they're in the diner, you're kind of like, what are they playing chicken? And like Kevin, I think is flirting. Oh my gosh, a squirrel just sprinted.
There's squirrels
the fastest
out.
I've ever seen a squirrel run out the window. It was so scary. Sorry, everybody. Like Kevin's playing chicken because he's flirting, right? But what's happening with Chiron in that scene is that he's never done this before. He's never won. I mean, he drives miles and miles and miles from Atlanta to Florida for this. So it's like a crazy. And he thinks
Oh, I didn't even connect.
He drove really far.
Yeah.
That's why Kevin's like, why are you here? Because he just called him. You know, he was thinking about him. He called him. Maybe he was drunk. Who knows? And I don't think he actually expected Chiron to show up. Whereas Chiron's almost like, it's like, almost like when you're a teenager and the person you have a crush on is like, we're all going to be, this is going to date me, at the mall later, you know, like come. And then you come and you kind of realize they didn't really care if you showed up or not. But in your mind, it's like the biggest deal. Like I feel like he's just like a little boy who's like hoping this is something. And then he gets there and he like feels foolish. And he's never had any experiences like that. I just think that's so sad. I don't know.
It is. But I thought the movie just did a good job up to that point showing me like what he's like. And I feel like I knew that.
So sorry, I meant to ask you a question. So did you feel like you knew he had no experience at all in that moment?
No.
Because I think that's like, I thought that was shocking, a shocking revelation. And it's the revelation.
The movie ends.
Yeah. Because I think it's like, do you think it's hopeful? Do you think it's a new beginning? Do you think it's a one-off experience and he's going to go back to being Black? Like, what does it mean? I guess it kind of leaves you with that question. I read it as hopeful, I guess.
Well, Allison asked, she was like, before the movie started, she was like, I figure you're like, I'm excited for you to watch this. It's a really good movie. What, are there more squirrels?
Yes.
Is it going to be, and it depends on what you think after the movie's over, whether it's emotionally devastating or whether you think it's actually hopeful.
Or both, maybe.
We discover that his friend Kevin has a child with a woman that he's not married to, but that child's still very much in his life. And Kevin
Jr.
And so Kevin himself is probably like bisexual or like not limited to just a heterosexual identity.
Possibly, yeah, that's one reading. Or you could read it as, because Kevin was clearly able to hide what Chiron could not as a teen. And so maybe it was going through with the motions, and now he has a child who he loves. It's hard to say. We don't really know enough about Kevin to say if it's... But he does talk about when he is a teen, he talks to Chiron about his sexual exploits, that maybe he's putting that on, or maybe it's genuine. Or he's bisexual.
as a child, or when he did this when they were in the middle part of the story, if he was just exploring and he was just
got pregnant
and kind of more like curiosity, just in the curiosity he had of calling Chiron, not really thinking much of it, and then Chiron meaning everything to him and driving all the way out to see this man. But I guess because I don't know, I just feel like I don't know.
This is going to lead me to my second question, which occurred because of what you were saying, especially about the structure.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found out a very interesting fact about the movie. I didn't realize it was based actually on a play written by Terrell Alvin McCraney. And in the development of the screenplay, the two of them both infused the script with personal details. They're both from the same area of Florida where this movie is filmed and where it's set. And they had mothers who were addicted, or had addiction, who struggled with addiction. So I didn't realize that. So that's interesting. But then the play is different in that it did contain 3 parts, but they ran simultaneously. So the audience would experience a day in the life of Little, Chiron, and Black concurrently. And it was not made clear the characters were the same person until halfway through the play.
I think that would have been really interesting.
I agree.
Because it's like you've carried me up to this Act 3 when he's an adult. And so I feel like it would have been more, like, not that you need to surprise, but it would have made me...
I mean, I think the surprise is preserved of, like, that Chiron grows up to be someone like Black. It's surprising because he just doesn't seem... But even though he's been saying the whole time he's not soft, but he seems like not a gentle person, like not someone who's going to turn to a hyper-masculine kind of sense of self. But obviously you could see how he did it as a protective measure or a hiding measure. But I do think it would have been interesting to see these characters. Like, when would you have realized that they were all the same? It probably would have been a more gradual surprise, and that might have been... I mean, I think it would have given what you thought was lacking, which is that you felt like you wanted to see more scenes of adult Chiron.
We don't. He literally, it's like him in bed getting calls from his mom. Then he gets a call from Kevin that he accidentally answers because he thinks it's his mom.
Yeah.
Then he goes visits his mom, and what I thought was a much more, not that we need to compare scenes, which one's more devastating, but that one is like...
It's a great scene, yeah.
Incredible. The Chiron's mom, who as a child, we see her, she has like a job, she's a nurse, and then she's falling into addiction, purchasing drugs from Juan, who is the man that kind of enters into Chiron's life and becomes like a second father to him, that like teaches him the lessons of life, teaches him like integrity, but then also this major conflict of he's a drug dealer himself, and like, and how much should he emulate this person that he ends up emulating quite a bit in that Act 3. And so the mom, like, herself is becoming addiction. She's very like angry and upset and hurt that she thinks this man could just come into their life and raise her son.
Well, and also I think it makes her feel inferior.
It makes inferior in a culture where it's really important as a protective measure to be like more masculine and tough, that she might possibly be raising a gay son makes it even more challenging. Like, that was like really powerful. Like, I really like that, like really impacted me. And so I thought, but yeah, so then like eventually in this third act, Chiron goes to his mom and she's working at
she's working there, but she was in a recovery home and now can stay on and continue to work. And she doesn't want to leave because she feels like here she's productive, here she's helping people, and here she's safe from falling back into addiction. And
so she's not on drugs, and she very like clearly looks into her son's eyes and saying that like, I love you, and her son can't even look at her, and he's like, because he's so emotionally devastated, and he's like tearing up, crying, and then she's like, I love you, you don't have to love me.
Yeah.
But I love you.
It's such a powerful...
And it's like really powerful.
line.
And then, so it's like, I guess I should have known that it was coming to an end then, but I was just like really like emotional. I was like gripped. I was like really interested in this. And then I wanted to see where it was going with Kevin, but then like Kevin is just like this slow, they're just I don't know. I don't know why.
It is very theatrical. I mean, I guess if you didn't know, you had no knowledge of the film, so and you built up these expectations over a decade
I guess
what it would be about.
I guess you watch like coming of age movies where you see an actor portray different parts of the lives. Like this is a really bad comparison, but you have like Matilda, for example. You have like the child Matilda who like isn't the main character that plays her. And it's kind of like the setup, and then we meet Matilda. Like,
which Matilda are you talking about? Hang on. Original Matilda or musical Matilda?
Original.
Because I know you don't like the musical.
I hate that musical. In fact, I saw like the live musical and I really hated it. So I refused to watch the movie. I enjoy
it. The movie's it has Alicia Weir in it. I forget what her name is, but might be Dorothy. That's the rumor on the street in Wicked Part 2 for good.
Okay.
Get excited.
Well, it's already been filmed.
I know, but nobody knows who's playing Dorothy.
So actually, okay.
And then she was questioned on the red carpet, and she was like, "Oh, yes, I heard the rumor," in her little Irish accent. "Oh, it's just so flattering," but she didn't really say no. So, folks,
watch out.
She's probably Dorothy. Okay, back to our program.
So with Chiron's character, like we see, there's 3 different actors, which Allison and I were very surprised to notice on the poster, even though I hadn't seen this movie. I'm very aware of what the poster looks like. We didn't realize it was 3 separate people.
Guys, the number of times I've looked at this poster, I mean, it's a very effective poster as a result, but I always thought I was looking at the little boy. And then Joe revealed he always thought he was looking at a man.
I thought it was I always saw like it looked like a teenager to me. It's like, for me, like summarized like all the faces, and for you, it summarized all the young
It's like, it's your bias when you look at something quickly, and that's
the Rorschach test.
Yes. And the reason we were actually able to look at it properly is because we paused it for a reason, and then the tile came up, and we were talking, and then we looked at it, and we looked for longer than a second. And then it was very obvious. I'm sure other people who are more visually attuned than me are going to be rolling their eyes, but I truly had no idea.
But we had to just pause it, because we were deep in conversation. We paused it so I could cut some cake.
That's what we like to do.
We have a giant cake that we're working our way through slowly every day.
It tasted really good.
It's really good, but for some reason it kind of feels like a chore, even though it's like delicious. Do you know what I mean? Like every time I see the fish, I'm like, we really got to finish that cake.
I do know what you mean. We should leave it out. Don't put this in the podcast.
So the squirrels can get it?
We should leave it out time when we go to the movies so that, like cake sometimes tastes better after it's been out of the fridge for like a couple hours, but you can't leave it out for too long.
Okay, but it's like there's a lot of frosting in it, and I was afraid it would like melt. It feels like, did you notice, this is a Lazy Acre purchase, that it was wrapped with like plastic when it was first purchased?
And I didn't like it because I'm really afraid of microplastics now.
Well,
I've noticed how much plastic is in everything.
That's a whole other problem on its own.
I know. Okay, sorry, continue.
The plastics containing the cake.
Yeah.
Because eventually it might spill out, and I feel like if we left it out, it would kind of collapse on us.
You're always thinking like a chef. Or a baker.
Chef Boyardee, which they mentioned in this movie.
They did.
My point being is we see young Chiron, we see teenage Chiron, and like it felt to me like we were setting up to meet the adult Chiron.
Yeah.
And then when it's like, no, they're each getting equal parts in this movie.
Right.
I guess that's where I was kind of, I don't know. It felt like it was like building up to it. And I'm like, oh, we're seeing his like childhood and teenage experiences. And it's going to really inform what we see in the like real story of him as an adult.
You raise like a very interesting point, because I do think the adult version of him gets the least amount of screen. I would be curious if someone out there wants to break it down. It does feel like it's the least amount of storyline. And also, we do get the scene where he's kind of working with the younger kind of man on the corner who brings the money to his house. And he's like, the count's off, and he kind of like messes with him, but he's teaching him how to have street wiles, and it's kind of a mentorship, and they have an ease and a familiarity, but you can tell the younger boy is afraid of him. So there's a lot of character information, I would say, in that small scene.
There is.
But beyond that, we don't get a lot of what his day-to-day life looks like.
No.
And big things have happened. Like after he hits the bully with the chair, he gets arrested. We find out that he is sent to Georgia and his mom moves there. That was confusing to me because it's implied that he's sent there because of what happened. But then the mom says, we left Florida so that you could have a different life, and yet you've fallen into that same life anyway. So I was a little bit confused on what prompted the move or how how that came about. But yeah, we don't really get a lot of detail. And a lot of time has gone by, which is why, I don't know. I still really like it because when he and Kevin do reunite in the diner, Chiron feels a little foolish, but then he kind of warms up, and then Kevin reveals he has the child, and you can just see that Chiron is really kind of devastated by this, and he's like, this isn't what I expected. And then Kevin's trying to ask him about his life. He reveals that he's, involved with drugs, and Kevin's clearly disappointed. And then he just feels even like worse, and it kind of feels like there's going to be a rupture. But then he's like, well, why'd you call me? What was going on? He's like, oh, some guy came in and played a song, made me think of you. And then he plays a song, and the lyrics were hello, stranger. Oh, it seems so good to see you back again. How long has it been? Oh, it seems like a mighty long time. Shoo bop, my baby. Ooh, it seems like a mighty long time. I'm so glad you stopped by to say hello to me. Remember, that's the way it used to be. Oh, it seems like a mighty long time. It seems like a mighty long time. And I really liked that song because, one, then Chiron shifts again. And I think it's because he's realizing that for Kevin, Chiron occupies the same space in his memory. Chiron occupies the same space in Kevin's memory that Kevin occupies in Chiron's memory. And that they're looking back on this past. They haven't seen each other in a decade. But there's this special person and the special moment that they haven't forgotten. And it kind of confirms that they both feel that way, but via the lyrics of this song. And I thought that felt very true to life in a way. Like, they're people from your past. You think about them, you wonder, do they have the same memory of me? And you don't really get to confirm often. So the fact that they have this chance to put their memories side by side, I thought that was beautiful. I don't know.
It's beautiful. It's a beautiful movie. I just thought there'd be more of adult Chiron.
Yeah.
So I was disappointed by that.
I do understand what you mean.
And that third act very much does feel like a play in the diner with, like, I pointed out, he brought out one bottle of wine. Chiron says he doesn't drink. And then
drank it so fast.
Chuck did one gulp, and it's like red wine.
And then we had an argument about whether or not we would drink wine out of plastic cups.
And you said you would.
I would.
But you got plastic wine glasses.
I don't like those ones.
But these are like plastic cups that you get at like Sherry's.
Yeah. I think that's charming in the diner setting.
So if you had a choice over plastic wine glasses or plastic Sherry's water cups, you'd choose the water cups?
Well, I mean, if I was at a diner.
And like your nose, we get like, well, my nose, not your nose. We get stuck in the cup because it's so small. And so Kevin's like making a point how he's going to make the chef special, which is like this Chilean dish. Is that right?
Cuban?
Oh, Cuban dish. I don't know where I got Chilean.
Well, we actually don't know. It was kind of like a scene from The Bear.
No, you said you were questioning what the dish was, and then he came out and said it was Cuban.
Oh, I missed that. Okay.
So Kevin's made this whole dish, and what's interesting with their dynamic is Kevin kind of went out on the line by calling Chiron in the first place and contacting him. Chiron put himself on the line by driving all the way out to Florida.
Yes.
Which is, it's kind of a bigger, which I guess, we know about this man. He's built himself up, so he's not afraid to take big swings like this. He drives all the way out to visit.
I think he is when it comes to emotions.
Emotions,
Yes.
absolutely.
But not other things, yes.
So he comes all the way to the restaurant, and then Kevin makes this whole meal for Chiron, and Kevin's like, I guess, putting himself on the line by making a dish and then putting on music that has very revealing lyrics on how he feels about Chiron. And then Kevin has a great line, which I'm probably going to butcher it, but it's so smart. I love it. I want to say this whenever I make this up for someone. It's like, if I cook, or if I...
Oh, it was Nana's rule. Or Grandma's rule.
Grandma's rule, I cook, you speak, or something like that. Meaning like, yeah, it's like, I've made this whole meal for you. Now I want to hear about your life, and you have to open up. But
that's what made him feel inferior. Like, he didn't want to, he's like, oh, Kevin's like had this life where Kevin says, oh, I have a life. I was going down a wayward track. I had to go to prison, and my son, it was so hard, like I wasn't around him, and now I'm out, and yeah, like I'm working these crazy hours. I'm not being paid enough, but like I have a life, and it's the best thing ever.
Kevin says that?
Something like that, yeah. And then Kevin's like, and how are you? And Chiron's like,
Oh, I missed that, which makes the later scene even more powerful.
Oh.
So Kevin says all that, but then when they eventually go back to Kevin's place,
Yeah.
Kevin then says that he hasn't been able to do anything that he's wanted.
And maybe the life part, maybe he says that in the house. Maybe I'm misremembering. But when they're in the house, he says, you know, this doesn't seem like you to Chiron. He's like, you don't know me, man. And then Kevin says, I guess that could be true. I think he's trying to say, like, you were always just yourself, and me, I was always doing what other people said, so I didn't even really have a self. I didn't know who I was. And I think that's speaking to the fact that he kind of succumbed to the pressures of his peer group, of his community, and who he was supposed to be as a black boy growing up into a black man in this area of Florida. And he maybe in his head, he imagined Chiron left their community and became this other type of queer black man who's maybe more, I think he kind of imagined a queerer, a softer version of Chiron. And instead he got the complete opposite and was surprised by it, even though he himself fell victim to having to morph himself into a certain way.
Well, and he knew ways to mask himself
better. He was better at more capable of doing it.
The presentation of being tough that we're given on the soccer field at the beginning of the movie of you can't let people pick on you, they'll walk all over you. And then another amazing line that Juan says is when there's the scene where the mom yells in slow motion. We don't really know what she says, but then the next scene, well, not really though, because then in the following scene, he's literally like, "What's the F slur?"
Yeah, you're right.
So I connect. I mean, I got that, and like the payoff is there's like later on it flashes back and shows her yelling the word. But he asks like Juan what the F slur is, and then Juan is like, "Well, it's used for gay people to like put them down," and then. What I thought was like really powerful, like amazing writing is then Chiron says, well, am I that? And Juan says, no, you may be gay, but you don't ever let someone call you that.
Yeah.
That was like chilling in a good way, is like how understanding Juan is. And we cannot also discredit Janelle Monáe's in this movie too.
I loved it. It's her first film
Magnificent acting.
Did you know that was her first role?
No, she's so good.
I'm pretty sure I read that just right now that it was her first time appearing in a movie, and I was like, oh my gosh!
And so just like
what can't that woman do?
The power that they understand of like how you need to present yourself, and just because you're gay, you still cannot let you need to have a sense of self and can't let other people walk all over you.
Yeah.
And instead of hiding or denying yourself, accept who you are. Is what I got out of that too.
I think it's an interesting, I see it both ways. I see it as don't let anyone define you, which is what Mahershala Ali's character Juan says also on the beach to Little. He says, you have to define yourself. You have to make choices to how you're going to present yourself to the world. And I can see it from your perspective of like, own who you are and don't let other people put it down and fight back. But I also think there's another reading there, which is that Juan tells Little, a neighbor woman said she was going to call me blue because she saw me running through the streets at night and I looked blue in the moonlight. But then when I was older, I decided who I was for myself. And I think there's like a reading where that softer, blue, vulnerable, emotional version of Juan, who we see interact with Little, kind of had to go away so that he could thrive and protect himself in the world. Do you know what I mean? So he's also telling Chiron, you could be gay, that doesn't matter, but you have to twist yourself into a shape that ensures nobody can bring you down for it.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I can see that being a negative thing too, because it's about masks. I mean, it's a positive, and I feel like the character of Juan is so formative for Chiron and is helping him and cares about him, which is very positive. But then, I mean, the message of masking in any way is like it's a necessary one. We all live in a society, but you know what I'm saying? Like,
but there's a specific community and society where
it's necessary.
It's necessary.
Yeah. I don't think it's a bad message. I think it's like sad that is part of the story.
It's sad, but the flip of it of Mahershala Ali like being, you can't be
Yeah, of course. Yes, that would have been
someone
horrible.
To deny. So I feel like there's the sense of self of who you are versus like the sense of, or the person that you show to the world. And so, yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, I mean, it's sad.
It's like, this is how you navigate the world. It's a real lesson and a compassionate lesson.
The fact that Mahershala Ali is so compassionate is what I was really moved by, even though what he's like telling Chiron is very sad that he has to do that. And this is like an extreme example, of course, that we can apply to all of our lives of needing to be like, we can't all like, you have to protect yourself in some ways when you go out in the role that you're showing and the person that you show up to, like whether it be at work with your personal life, like all these different facets of who we are while still like maintaining like you yourself knowing who you are. And so I feel like that I was really impressed by that. I feel like Chiron kind of loses. He's just such an extreme, different person from who he was as a teenager to who he is in that third act. That then I'm like you can like visually see how different he is.
Yes.
But then to see how he acts around Kevin, just who he is at his core. And then at the very end of the movie, like the last shot, which is very moving, of seeing Chiron like resting his head on Kevin's shoulders, like really powerful.
Just like they did when they were teenagers on the beach.
And even to that extent, like I think it's like important, like even for them to not even be pursuing like a sexual relationship per se, but just like the fact that like Kevin can be there emotionally for Chiron when like Chiron needs him and it's like opening up, I think is like really powerful too.
Yeah, the emotional safety element that he's never had his whole life. And I almost wonder if Juan had survived, because what's really interesting about Juan's character is he knows how to present himself to the world and stay safe, retain power, however you want to define it. But his softness is not gone at all. It's very there. And so he may have been able to show Chiron how to be that way and be both. But he passes away. And so he has his mother who is not there for him emotionally or there for him in any way. Like it seems like he has to leave his house in the middle of the night because she kicks him out. And she takes his money, all the stuff that is very upsetting and distressing. But he doesn't really have anybody. And then Kevin becomes this emotional balm for a brief moment, but then turns around and physically harms him. And I guess you have Teresa, but that's the only person who seems to care about him.
Then on top of that, even though he has like this safety net, his bullies are aware of his circumstances and the fact that he goes and retreats to Teresa's house. They make fun of him for that and humiliate for it. So there's just like everybody knows everybody's business in this community.
That seems like,
And so it's like inescapable. So even though he's like seeking comfort, his mom makes him feel shit about it. His bullies make him feel shit about it. Like, it's just like he can't escape. It's like really relentless.
Very dark, yes. Should I give a couple pieces of information about filming in Florida?
Yeah.
It didn't have tax incentives for film production. I don't know if it does today, but at the time it didn't. But they decided to do it anyway. The creative team felt very strongly and the financiers backed it. The budget, if they had filmed in a different state with the kind of tax credits, which, we need here in California for the film industry, just throwing that out there for some brief advocacy in the middle of our podcast, then the budget would have maybe had 30% more resources, which is interesting. You can't tell. The quality of the storytelling and filmmaking is excellent. So you can't tell, but just an interesting piece of information. But they really wanted to do it to maintain the authenticity of the story because both the playwright and Barry Jenkins are from this area. And Jenkins made an effort to find locations where he had actually previously lived.
Okay.
Like Liberty Square, a housing project, was chosen as the primary location where both the playwright and McCraney and Jenkins grew up. And Naomi Harris, who plays Chiron's mother, was quoted saying, it was the first time someone had come to their community and wanted to represent it on screen. And since Barry Jenkins had grown up in that area, there was a sense of pride and this desire to support him. You felt this love from the community that I've never felt in any other location anywhere in the world. And it was so strange that it happened in a place where people were expecting the complete opposite.
Mm-hmm. Was there anything that they couldn't accomplish because they didn't get that 30% increase? Or was it they probably just weren't able to pay actors or
I don't know. I mean, I'm sure someone out there has probably written about it, but I don't have that information.
I mean, the actors were paid, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
But they probably weren't.
I mean, it was Jenkins' second film, so I don't know. And his first film was called Medicine for Melancholy.
I haven't even heard of it.
And his short film, My Josephine, 2003.
What is his filmography? Can you just quickly go through it?
Sure. We have Medicine for Melancholy in 2008, Tall Enough in 2009, Moonlight 2016. Okay, it's weird. It said it was a second film.
It's Tall Enough, a short film?
Oh, it's a short. Okay. If Beale Street Could Talk, 2018. Have you seen that?
No, I want to.
After Sun, he was a producer. Amazing film. Could never watch that movie again. So, have you seen it? With Paul Mescal.
I know of it. I never saw it.
Do you know what happens?
No.
We need to watch it, actually. Just kidding. I'll watch it again. All Dirt, Roads, Taste of Salt, producer. The Fire Inside, writer and producer. Mufasa, director. And 2025, he has a film coming out called Sorry Baby, producer. And he also did some television. Dear White People, The Underground Railroad, True Detective.
Well, he probably directed an episode.
He was the executive producer on the Jodie Foster season, which we didn't like.
No.
Okay.
I didn't like any of them after season 1.
I don't even like season 1.
Well, did you finish it?
Yeah. I just didn't like all that philosophizing. Even though I love philosophy, it made me kind of roll my eyes. And then I really didn't like the way prostitutes were used in that film, in that story from my memory. Even though I know everyone loves it. Okay. We were talking about something.
You just facts about Mahershala Ali facts. No, Barry Jenkins, making the movie, the 30%.
Oh, yeah.
And then how the community really rose up in an unexpected way.
And I just think that choosing to film it in Florida really did add something to the film. You mentioned you could see the humidity on the screen, and it did feel like there was a strong sense of place. I do have some editing information for you. I'd be curious.
Who edited this movie, actually?
Actually, I think it was 3 people, and but one of the editors, Joy McMillan, she became the first Black woman to be nominated for an editing Oscar. And the other editors were, it was 2. Nat Sanders and Joy McMillan. But here's a little bit of information about their process, and I'd just be curious to see what you think about this. And I wonder if you've ever edited with somebody before. But post-production was in Los Angeles. They were both, Joy and Nat were former university schoolmates of Jenkins. Sanders was responsible for editing the first and second chapters. McMillan was responsible for the third act, which included the diner scene. McMillan and Sanders worked in the same room during editing sessions and were able to exchange notes and provide feedback to one another throughout post-production. Because the film did not need to be ready for any film festival premiere deadlines, they were able to take ample time. Jenkins was usually there. In McMillan's words, at certain points, Barry and Nat would be working on a section of the film, and then they would say, "Hey, Joy, turn around, look at this," and then vice versa. When Barry was with me, he'd say, "Hey, Nat, how do you feel about this?" So there was like a lot of collaboration. What do you think about that?
That'd be good. That'd be nice. Makes it less stressful because they've been seeing it bits and pieces. You're not like showing them the whole cut and be like, "Oh, we got a lot of work ahead of us." It's been going like scene by scene, things have been reviewed, and then so they watch it all together. They kind of are all on the same page and can anticipate.
Yeah.
Which I think that's kind of one of the scariest things as an editor, especially when you're doing your first cut, which is called an assembly cut, which is usually where the editor's on their own, mostly just trying to piece everything together, trying to follow the script to make sure that everything lines up closest to that version as possible. Probably with some of their own like editing flares, only for the purposes of making the movie work a little better in their eyes. But usually an assembly edit is considered like the worst cut because it's the time, not because of course it's going to improve because filmmaking is a collaborative effort. Like you need people involved because you're making it for an audience. Well, in some cases, sometimes it's director's project. And actually at AFI, we had one editing teacher where they said, you got to ask the director, are they making this movie for an audience or are they making this movie for themselves? Because if they're making this movie for themselves, then you might have to make some different choices and follow what they want and only what they want. But during the assembly edit, it's considered it's considered the worst cut because it's when the director, they've been dreaming of this movie their whole time. And they say a movie's written 3 times. The first time is written when it's written on the page. The second time is when it's filmed. And the third time is when it's edited. And so an assembly edit is the first time that the director comes face to face with the story that they pictured in their mind and what they experienced on set.
Okay.
And it will never capture the imagination of what was written on the page. It will never capture the experience fully of what was on set. That's impossible because it has to be, there's only so many minutes a movie can be. And so it's like usually considered like the worst cut because the director coming face to face with what they have. And then from there, it gets progressively better, partially because the director gets to have more input on what's going into the cut, what's coming out of the cut, the order of things, such and such. But also it's kind of a matter of them accepting and getting comfortable with what they have and realizing that in the end, it's in a lot of cases still really good. And in Moonlight, magnificent. But maybe because of the way they did it with the editors, Barry Jenkins never felt that way because he saw it piece by piece and was able to manage his expectations.
Yeah. I also read that they were going to have the scene with the mom be the beginning of part 3, and then they moved it later. And I think that's a good choice. Wise.
I also had an editing teacher. I do a lot of editing for YouTube, and it's usually like long shoots of like 6 hours of footage where you're trying to like whittle it down to now like 30-minute episodes. And in that, you kind of like, it's a lot of game show stuff where questions are being asked and you can like kind of like reshuffle things around. Like, I think this would like fit better, especially you're like bouncing. And the editing I do, it's kind of like montage editing where it's like you're cutting to one group asking questions, you're cutting to another group asking the same questions. You kind of like, you can like move stuff around, reorganize it and give it like a narrative pace. So it feels like it's like heightening by the end. But with scripted work, like the screenwriter has done a very hard job on writing it on the page to make it naturally happen within the story. It's not reality TV. It's not like, even though some reality is scripted to a degree, but there's less work for the editor in that sense, is that there's already a story there. So we're actually highly encouraged, especially by one teacher at AFI. He taught us like, it's really important to try to honor how the order of the script, because usually that's going to be the best version of the story. So I'd be interested if it was in the script itself that the mom scene was supposed to come first, or whether like they were just testing out and for a while the cut had the mom scene earlier on, because the way it's done right now, I think, is the better version.
It's interesting. It says that Sanders and McMillan made several changes from the script. The most notable being Chiron's visit with his mother is meant to be one of the first scenes in the third act, but the editors convinced Jenkins to move it later in the story. So it sounds like they did have a lot of role in restructuring the scenes in the script.
That's interesting. And I'd have to go back and watch, but the parts with Chiron in the bed, it seems clear to me that his mom's been calling him and he hasn't seen her. But I wonder if that was supposed to go first. Then he visits his mom. Then we see the scene. I mean, there's not many scenes with the like different scenes. Like the only outside of like Kevin's scenes and the mom scenes are the one with like the one counting the money.
And him just in his space. I like having the mom scene come a bit later and after the call with, was it before or after the call with Kevin?
It's after the call with Kevin. Because his mom's been calling him. He's ignoring her
and then
calls,
Kevin calls and thinks this is his mom. So what I like about that is that it's almost like a mini movie where oftentimes in scripts, the protagonist, something happens, the world is shattered, whatever, then they get an opportunity or there's a chance to do something like take the red pill or the blue pill, think of any movie you've seen and there's a choice to be made, right? And usually a good script will have the character kind of not pursue it right away, and then later on they'll go for it. And I think here it seems like Kevin's call is the invitation. I don't think he's going to take the invitation. Then from his mother, he gets the kind of unconditional love and glimpse at vulnerability that he has never received in his life, and it cracks open a small piece of him that enables him to go drive to Kevin. Yeah. And without that, I don't know it's a movie, so he still would have gone. But I like the idea that there's something about that moment with his mother that alters him in a fundamental way.
I agree. I can't imagine it in a different order.
Agreed.
So this is your fourth time watching this movie?
I don't actually really know so when I was in grad school, I was a graduate student teacher teaching intro to screenwriting, and I used this movie in some of my classes. I actually don't even remember what I used it for or what the lessons were. But I watched it several times because I taught 2 quarters of this class. And then I've seen it myself in the theaters, and I feel like I've seen it one other time. Probably in class as a grad student.
Has it changed for you in all of your viewings? or do you walk away with the same response?
I respond very similarly to the final beat and the reveal that this is a man who's composed himself off completely from vulnerability and connection. And I'm just very bowled over by that every time. But this time in watching it, there were things I noticed that I didn't notice before. Like I feel like the bullying, while it feels very realistic, I do think you're right that the scene on the beach and then the very next scene being Kevin kind of convinced by the main bully
in a very unnatural way.
Very fast. And that struck me as well. I mean, I think Kevin preparing his chef special for Chiron is like an act of care or attention, and I can see its purpose, but it just made me think of like, now that we have, it's really dumb, but now that we have the bear and just like the glamour shots of the food in that scene in Moonlight felt less meaningful to me. Like I was kind of like, I don't know how to explain it. It felt more silly to me. That was a part that kind of, because it was just.
I feel like there's other movies that have done it before.
I know.
That TV show that shows how food can be like a service of love for people that you care about.
Maybe I've just seen it so frequently now that I felt like I don't really remember having any particular feelings about it, but it just stood out to me in a way that felt very like, oh, I've seen this before. I've seen this beat before. Mm-hmm. I had forgotten some of the details of how the mom treats him as a child, and it's very
that was really rough
distressing.
To see. Yeah. When he's a teenager, it was distressing, but not as much as when he's a child. Like that was.
I don't know. It really upset me when she tries to take his money as a teen, because the part of it that I found most upsetting is like when so first of all, she kicks him out the night before, says, you can't be here, someone coming over. Then he's coming home and they're in the lawn outside in their apartment area. And she goes, where were you? You could have come home after I was worried about you. I guess you're grown up now. And like, clearly she's like kind of high, kind of altered. And she's projecting more care than she was before. And that feels like a big whiplash. And then you kind of find out it's because she wants his money. And then she gets the money from him in like a very aggressive, upsetting way. And then he's about to go upstairs. She goes, hey, it's time for you to go to school. You're late. And so she does still, like, it's like she cares about him and wants him to do certain things that a good mother should want him to do. But at the same time, she can't really care for him at all. And I just found that to be
she's in the depths of her addiction, but even in the depths of her addiction, she
still wants him to go to school. Yeah, I mean,
once she's able to meet her needs at this point where her addiction's at, then she's like able to get like a moment of clarity to be like, what? And you also have to go to school.
Yeah.
So it's like, she definitely has her demons. So it's like really, so you never, as intense it is with the mom, I feel like you never feel like the whole time you feel the agony that she's going through. So she's never, that's what makes it so dark and sad, is you still see the humanity in her, even when she's being so treating Chiron so awfully.
Yes. And it's not a stereotype.
Yeah.
It's and a then nuanced, complex portrait.
Even the main bully, he's not like this like menacing
figure.
You just kind of see how if like Chiron really wanted to, he could stand up to this man, but he just like wasn't there yet.
Well, I mean, we can clearly see that because he
eventually breaks a chair over him.
Yeah. The bully's name was Terrell. Yeah, the part that was really the part that bumped for me, which is when
in the cafeteria
he's when Tyrell's remember when we were kids, we used to play knock somebody over? And we don't do that anymore.
It's totally out of the blue. Like especially it was like right after that beautiful scene that Kevin and Chiron have on the beach, that it's like the next day in that cafeteria, we were really focused on, there were all these like red doors in the cafeteria. We're like, what are all these doors? Then we realized it's probably where they put the lunch tables in. But yeah, it cuts to Tyrell and Kevin at a table, and Tyrell immediately saying, remember we used to play that game where like, you have to do what that person says or else you're a wimp. And then Kevin's like, yeah. He's like, how about we do right now? We pick someone right now. We go bully them. And he's like, okay.
It almost makes me wonder. I wonder if there was a missing
Maybe that's
scene.
What they need. That's why they needed the 30% more funding to kind of flesh that out more.
Well, I'm wondering, do you think that maybe there's a chance that Terrell or another member of his friend group saw Kevin drop Chiron off after the beach? Because that kind of would make sense, because then it's a targeted attack, but it's meant to be like, prove that you are not like Chiron by attacking him. Which guess it would make it more sense, but then I would have been annoyed if I had seen that, and I'm like, oh, now it gives Tyrell the fuel. I guess it's scarier in a way to me that it was just random.
Tyrell has like no reason to hate Chiron. He just hates Chiron because he's such a like sees him as such an inferior person.
Yeah.
And it doesn't even need reason to question that he has like relationships with another man. He doesn't give a fuck. He just wants to fuck with this guy.
I mean, I think he does care because if you remember in the first scene we meet Tyrell, he's like, it's in the classroom. He's making fun of Chiron for having a period or whatever.
Yeah.
So there is definitely something about Chiron and his queerness, I would say, that's provoking Tyrell.
To pick on the weakest person.
And the jeans, the part with the jeans,
way
too small.
And so he probably has seen, not knowing necessarily what goes on between Kevin and Chiron, but knows that Kevin is kind to Chiron is enough for Tyrell to be like, how about I not only beat up Chiron, but use this person to destroy him even more?
Yeah. Someone was pointing out, I don't have my source for this, but that the idea that weakness in this world, like when you know, there's danger for these boys and men in their community, and by nature of the fact that they're marginalized and there's like societal forces that also put themselves and their bodies in danger. So yes, they're making fun of his quote unquote weakness or his queerness or his otherness, but it's also because they see it as dangerous, you know what I mean, to be that way. And so that's why I just think it's a really good film, because it makes you kind of think about all these things, and it is a very specific group, very specific place, but also we're all in this world where, like you were saying, these realities, these masks are put on because we're trying to keep ourselves safe from, I don't know, perceived danger or real danger. I don't know. So I think it's specific and universal is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. Why do we wear masks?
I have a poem about that. No, I'm not going to read it. Never know. Just maybe remember.
That you wrote?
The poem is by Paul Laurence Dunbar. Have you ever heard this in school?
No.
We wear the mask that grins and lies, that hides our cheeks and shades our eyes. This debt we pay to human guile. With torn and bleeding hearts we smile, and mouth with myriad subtleties. Why should the world be overwise in counting all our tears and sighs? Nay, let them only see us while we wear the mask. We smile, but oh, great Christ, our cries to thee from tortured souls arise. We sing, but oh, the clay is vile beneath our feet and long the mile. But let the world dream otherwise, we wear the mask.
I'm not really good with poems, but I like the words.
Why do we wear masks? I think it's because there are expectations about how we're supposed to be in the world, and to be different or to be other means that we might be ostracized or isolated, or in the case, I think, of certain, especially marginalized people who are already on the margins, threatened, harmed, murdered, whatever you want to say. So I think it's just to keep ourselves safe and like emotional. And that's why the movie I think is really interesting, because like in order to have true connections with people, you have to drop your mask and reveal your true self, or people will never be able to connect to you.
Mm-hmm. We need community. Like we're all like social creatures, and to have communities, there's a lot of different personalities within those communities. And I think a way of like looking at like the mask that you wear are like the like responsibilities you have also in society, and the role that you need to play in society. And then we also have like our wants, and then we also have our needs. And if everyone all the time was just doing everything that they like wanted or felt like, I feel like societies and chaos would collapse, and we wouldn't be able to like function. And people have their roles to play in community, and I think there's like positive and negative aspects to that.
I feel like sometimes we've created a world, or we have certain social norms that existed for a long time. Maybe they become outdated and we need to discard them, but we can't. I don't know. I feel we're talking in a very abstract way.
We are. Well, too, I mean, like Moonlight too, like we can't speak to this experience specifically. So I don't know. It's a stretch to try to like force our own narrative on it, and we should not. So maybe I shouldn't ask that question. But anyway.
I mean, I guess that's my curiosity for you to have like kind of a muted, or you to have certain reaction to the film. Like, do you feel like its take on the masculinity portion of the film feels authentic to your own experience in a way, or does that even seem like distant for you? I just like wasn't really targeted. Yeah. When I was a kid, like there's definitely like bullying that went on, but my thing was just kind of like to ignore it. And what was really interesting in this movie is Chiron also tries to ignore it, but that he's like forced to like interact with it quite often.
and then he has to like make a choice.
Yeah.
And like we see as a kid, he like decides his one friend who's just like helping him, like being like, hey, like you're funny, like you need to like toughen up, like fight back. And then he does fight back in like in an aggressive way, but it's for the most part like playful. And then as a teenager, like he smashes the fucking chair over his bully. Like I never was like I never really was forced to.
The stakes never were that high.
They weren't ever that high. If I wanted to be left alone, I feel like people left me alone.
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense to me. Because I feel like what you're saying is right. Like we can't really speak to the experience of the film, but and that's where it comes down to, like, it's an intersectional movie in terms of intersectional identity, where this is a story about being Black, but it's also a story about being queer. And those are two stories that are happening. It's somebody who inhabits both identities at once, and we only inhabit one of those identities. Well, and a third piece of it is and being a man. So there's like 3 threads. Mm-hmm. You can relate to 2 of them, and I can relate to one of them, but we can't relate to all 3 of them.
Mm-hmm. But what about your experiences in childhood?
I guess like the hiding component of it speaks more to me, because I never really was bullied. I definitely felt different. I don't really know why, but I definitely did feel that way. And I didn't want people to find out. Do you know what I mean? But I didn't really have a sense of why.
Isn't there so much importance in your childhood too of like wanting to belong to a specific group? So that's kind of something that we see, or at least I've seen in like movies like Mean Girls, where they show like the social hierarchy of female relationships.
Yes.
And so it's like you kind of have to like mold yourself in a certain way to fit into a specific group if you want to be in that group.
That's a good point. So I was always very, I mean, there were times where I felt that pressure, but I was very like, I think that's dumb. And maybe that was like maybe it's because I knew I wouldn't be able to perform in that way. So I opted out and kind of was judgmental of any sort of behavior like that. Do you know what I mean? Which I think was protective. And then now thinking back, there was like a gendered thing where weirdly being tougher or kind of, like I feel like anytime I was never really bullied, but anytime it ever came anything close to that, it would be because I was weaker or softer, and not so oddly I can relate more to Chiron being told you're too soft than I can to anyone bullying me for kind of the opposite sort of queer gendered experience that a girl who might be more masculine or more mask. You know what I mean? Like that could lead to a particular kind of bullying, but I feel like I was more, I kind of more relate to Chiron in the sense of he felt like others perceived him as too soft. And for him, that was really dangerous. For me, it just made me feel like inferior and wanting to prove myself that wasn't the case. Instead of embracing my soft qualities and seeing the positive in them, which now I really do.
I think mine were just more that I was like quiet.
Yeah.
And then like I can still be like this in some ways of like not knowing when I want to like insert myself in conversation. Cause I'm like, well, do I have something to contribute to this? Like, how can I add on to this?
Yeah.
And then getting in my own head on this, and where it's like, I probably could be able to, so everyone is just sharing their opinions. Why can't I just share mine? But I'm like so afraid of like thinking of what other people will think. So that's where it kind of came in for me.
I felt that more in high school. Yeah. Okay. I'd be like, except for in certain school settings. Yeah. Like in big social settings. I'd be like, I don't know.
But in terms
I was
of
very
like,
quiet.
In terms of like education though, where you like, that's where you could really thrive.
I was always
like something you can
pretty confident in school, with some exceptions. No, pretty much always in like an academic field, but anywhere else, like then I would feel the older I got. I feel like I was very confident when I was young, and then I lost a lot of confidence socially and interpersonally, I guess, when I was older. But I was always confident in the classroom. Except when I had to speak Spanish out loud in front of the people. But then my really good teacher, Senator Basson, told me that, you are doing really well, but if you really want to get an A, you have to be calm and confident in your speaking when you're doing a presentation. I forget what she said, and I took it to heart, and I did a really good job on my final project. And she was really proud of me. Sorry, continue.
So whenever we talk about TV and movies, you always make a point to say that you're
a TV girl.
A TV girl.
I am.
But you did a lot of studying.
I know.
In high school. But was it like cramming last minute, or were you always constantly studying?
Oh, what do you guess?
Cramming.
Yeah, of course. I'm a huge procrastinator. I have a really good memory, like I told you, so I could do everything at the last minute and get a really good grade. But I didn't watch that much TV as a kid.
That's what I was going to ask.
I didn't, actually. I kind of was
What'd
indifferent.
you do?
Well, okay, I did do a lot of homework and studying. So when I say I would wait until the last minute to study, I would. But my school was just everyone, I had to go to practice. It would take really hours. I lived far from school. You come home, you have to eat dinner, and then you have only so many hours to do all your homework and essays and assignments and to study for the big test. And there was a test every day. So I feel like I was doing a lot of studying, but it was all at the last minute and it had to be perfect. You know what I mean? So it was kind of a bad combo. But when it comes to TV, I only watched 2 shows, Grey's Anatomy and Lost, and I wouldn't care if it meant I would have to memorize everything for the test. So I would stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning to do it. But if Grey's Anatomy was on that night, it would be like my break from studying.
Well, that's good.
And then one time when George and Izzy seemed to both potentially be dying in a cliffhanger episode, I pretended I was sick and stayed home from school so that I was so distraught by this, I just didn't want to study anymore. And then my mom was like, fine, whatever. And I remember I pulled my first all-nighter my freshman year.
Yeah.
And I was down in our little computer room and my dad came down and he was like, what are you doing? And I was like, I never went to sleep. And their parents were like, what? And then little did they know I would do many more of those.
Okay, we're so off topic.
I
But
know.
at least this is towards the end of the episode, so let me stop the episode. But I do miss, those TV shows that had longer seasons to really become engaged.
I agree.
And be absorbed in those worlds and not know where it's going to go. Whereas now we're yes, we have prestigious TV, but they're limited to 10 episodes.
Yeah, imagine if every week for something like Severance, it lasted for 24 weeks. 24 weeks of excitement.
Because that's Lost was
yes. And then there would be the times where they'd be off for a couple of weeks. It basically lasts the entire year from the fall until May with breaks in between. And
so it really does feel like you're
I think that's why I love TV so much, because it was I was studying a lot. I didn't have a lot of social outlets, so TV was more of my social outlet.
I can watch
my
these people live their
friends, Jack,
lives.
Kate, Sawyer.
What show is that?
That's Lost.
Oh.
What do you mean?
I've only seen 3 episodes of Lost. Maybe one day we'll do a rewatch.
I think we will.
But the reason for me asking this is because you did so much studying. I wonder if we were to compare each other, I wonder who consumed more TV.
I've watched so much TV now. I watch all the shows, but in high school, it was really just those 2 shows, and I didn't watch reality TV. And then in college, I remember I started watching The Walking Dead, Mad Men, and Breaking Bad, and I feel like that's kind of what got me into looking for more TV shows, and that was my senior year. So I didn't really watch a lot of TV from 14 to, I think it was probably you is what I'm trying to tell you.
I think it's me. I think I consumed every waking minute, every opportunity to not have to do schoolwork, to not have to do school sports, to not have to do anything. I would my goal was to always watch. I watched so much TV. There's so much TV shows that I don't even remember the names of them because I just was watching them. I just could not stop consuming them. And then when the iPod came out, the video iPod came out, that was game over.
Because you watched TV on the video iPod?
Yeah, I would load stuff and put it on my iPod, and then I just hang out and just I was I can carry this wherever I go. And now
I really had such an analog, probably even more so than people my age, teenage life. I rarely.
Did you ever have a video iPod?
I did, but I didn't watch videos on it.
Oh my God, I was thrilled. I still remember the ad, it was an iPad. I remember the video iPod box had a picture of Jack Sparrow from Pirates of the Caribbean on it. I was I can watch this on this tiny screen.
Oh
my God, I miss the video iPod.
I think that would be cool to bring back.
Yeah.
Bring it back, folks.
And to not have a cell, because now it's I'll watch stuff on my, I was supposed to go.
Oh my gosh.
I was supposed to view an apartment at 4:00, but whoops, it wasn't meant to be.
Oh, there was one embarrassing thing. So I didn't watch a lot of TV, but what I did do is I would go onto YouTube and I would watch fan edits of my preferred TV shows.
Where they put the romantic music over it. It's just crossfades between the 2 actors in every scene.
It was TikTok before there was TikTok,
But were they commenting on it? Because I've seen some of the old fan edits from 15 years ago where it's they'll take like a story arc and just like find every scene of them, no sound, just music, and like crossfades between them. Is that
stuff like that?
Yeah.
And I would also do I would watch fan art compilations for Harry Potter.
Knowing you, this is all G-rated material. I'm sure.
It was. Anyway, we really got off
Back
topic.
to Moonlight.
I still really like this movie, and I do think it's a powerful. The surprises might be subtle, but they are impactful, and I really think about the ending of the movie all the time. It's okay that you don't feel that way.
I do think it's impactful. I just wonder if the environment that I watched it in, I feel like this would have been a more all-absorbing movie if I'd seen it on the big screen, and then didn't watch it for the first time 9 years after it came out, even though it's still magnificently accomplished. The acting's incredible. And the story is really incredible. My complaint is I feel like the movie ended before I felt it got started.
You wanted more.
Yeah, I wanted more, which is a compliment.
I guess it's a compliment at the end of the day.
There are so many times in past episodes. You'd ask if I'd seen Moonlight, and then I'd say that I hadn't, and then you shade me for it. I'm pretty sure I edited them out of so many episodes. It's like, I can't be shamed for this.
Well, there you go, everyone. You're learning the secrets that I've been calling Joe out. I've been putting him on blast.
And we finally did it.
And it's good that you've seen it. I think it's something that everybody should have seen. You know what I mean? It's one of those movies you need to check off your watch list.
Yeah.
To be a film connoisseur.
And I think one of those most beautiful shots in the movie, I just like, it almost looked like it was like a film set because it looked so unreal. Mahershala Ali teaching Chiron how to swim in the water, and he was holding him. I'm pretty sure that was used as the Oscar clip for Mahershala Ali when he won his Best Supporting Actor.
So many times.
But the way that the water is, the way that they look in the water, and then the background, it's just like surreal. And I remember in that moment just like sitting here on the couch last night and being like, this is like what cinema can do. Like I can just watch these two people and be in on an experience that I will never be involved with, and like can just like soak it in and just be like in awe of it.
Yeah.
And that's like a specific moment where I'm like, wow, if I like seen this on the big screen, like how much more, like the fact that I wasn't watching this on my tiny little video iPod, but I was watching it on a pretty big TV, but how much that would have been different on like a massive theater screen. And to have watched it with a community of moviegoers too is
true.
Is an important experience.
I don't really remember. I saw it in the theaters, but I don't actually remember
the setting
being there.
I don't remember.
And I might have seen it by myself.
Yeah.
Also, I think it might be one of the first queer movies I ever saw, because I don't think I saw any queer movies prior to leaving college or being an adult.
You hadn't seen Call Me by Your Name before then?
After I graduated.
Oh, that came out after Moonlight.
Yeah. I mean, these were all the films. Like I saw that. I saw Carol. I saw Battle of the Sexes. I saw Rocketman. All these movies I saw were, but I can't think. What was my first queer or gay movie? I don't think I saw any in college.
Did you ever watch Saved?
Is there a queer? I did see Saved at Your House. Is there a queer part to that story?
Yeah. That was one of my favorite movies. We should do that on the podcast.
It's on our list, actually.
Yeah. This has been an episode on Moonlight. I'm Joe.
I'm Allison.
Please make sure to like, subscribe, comment with your thoughts about the movie, and email us at queercinemacatchup@gmail.com. That is catchup, CATCHUP.
It's probably good that you do that. We never do that, and it might be a little bit confusing. Maybe that's why we don't have many emails.
Well, watch out. They're going to start flooding us the emails now.
Okay. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks.